So, the spoilers are out for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 350, and let's just say that from what we see from the spoilers, this is going to be an amazing chapter, and it's most likely going to set the My Hero Academia on fire, both literally and oh so much figuratively, and you'll see why that's the case, but first, right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to cover the spoilers for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 350, and from what we see with the spoilers so far, yeah, we are getting Dabi's backstory, and it's actually completely different than what you think, but exactly what you think. Because from what we get in this chapter and what we see from the spoilers, most likely we're going to see how Dabi became himself and how most likely than not All For One is somehow involved in it, because of course he is. So let's get right into the spoilers, starting off with the chapter beginning with the gorilla cop going to Dr. Garaki's cell. The old man is talking to himself, saying that they have spent a long time looking for seeds to cultivate. Seeds that nurtured a hatred towards society and that could become receptacles for All For One. We see a page showing Dabi and Shoto and then cut to the flashback. So what's very interesting about what we see in the spoilers is that Dr. Garaki, most likely than not, is playing a role in Dabi's flashback. So it's interesting that we're actually cutting back to him in the present time, most likely because we do see him in the spoilers. And then we cut over to the next line of text spoilers where we see that Toya is burning on Mount Seko in despair, saying that he doesn't want to die and that he still needs to show Endeavor what he is capable of. Just as he's practically charred, a man in a suit and hat who appears to be All For One emerges from the flames. On the next page, Toya gets up from his bed in a mysterious facility decorated with various childish decorations. As soon as he awakens, several children notice his presence and become excited, saying that the sleeper has finally woken after 3 years. When he tries to say something, he notices that his voice is different. The children call the doctor, and we are introduced to a bizarre figure with a sunflower face. Toya asks him to let him out, and the doctor refuses, saying that from now on, he will live there with his new family. So we got a little bit of interesting information about what happened. For starters, it's confirmed that All For One saved Toya, saved Dabi, which should be a surprise to no one with how much influence All For One has had, not just on the story, but in the world of My Hero Academia as a whole. It just makes sense for this to have been the case, and what's even more interesting is what we're going to get a little bit later when it comes to where most likely Dabi, aka Toya, is, and what his purpose was when it comes to his connection with All For One. Because the next part of the text spoilers say that Toya cannot accept this, because he has said many horrible things to his family, and his father must be worried about him. Just then, a voice comes out of a monitor and informs the boy that none of this will be possible because restoring his body was too difficult. The missing parts have been patched up using the other people as a base, so he will no longer be able to use the full power of his flames. They would have liked to recruit him at the peak of his potential, but he turned out to be a failure. Hearing these words, he remembers what Endeavor used to say and despairs. So once again, we're getting a little bit more information about Dabi, what he's doing in this facility, how he actually was able to get his current body, and we're going to see a little bit later what he does next, and it's very horrific. And from what we see next, most likely All For One is talking to Toya, and this voice says that they might be able to revert his body to its former state if he stays there with them for a while and becomes part of the family. Actually, this may be Dr. Garaki, because from what we see next, Toya tells him to shut up and says that he doesn't want anyone to teach him anything. Not even an all-controlling man like All For One could undo the impact Endeavor had caused on the boy's head. They were keeping several children as replacements in case something happened to Shigaraki, and Dabi was supposed to be one of them. but he burned down the facility and ran away. The gorilla cop is confused by the fact that all this was an all-for-one plan, but the doctor says that they should be careful because the boy survived in some way beyond their knowledge, since his body in that state couldn't even last a month. So once again, we're getting a little bit more understanding of how Dabi became who he is. We see Garaki talking to a random gorilla, and we're getting to see more of how Dabi was willing to go back to his father, and we get to see that most likely Dabi pulled an Anakin and killed a bunch of children, which, if you could forgive him for everything that he has done so far, you can't forgive him for killing children. And from there, with the next line of tech spoilers, we get something even more interesting. Because apparently Garaki says that he was surprised when Giran brought Dabi to the League, and when Dabi went to get the high-end Nomu and the two were alone, he comments that he knows it was the doctor who saved him from death. The doctor is happy that he realized this and asks how he survived, but Dabi ignores him and says that by looking at the Nomu, he finally understood what they intended to do with him if he had agreed to stay there with the other children. Then the doctor says that he told him that he managed to avoid death through his flames of hatred and resentment. So once again, we're learning a little bit more about Dabi, how he was able to survive even though he wasn't supposed to, and we're actually getting to see that he did know Garaki prior, and he did have interactions with him before, Shigaraki was able to fully see the doctor, and when Shigaraki was finally allowed to tame a Gigantomachia. So it's very interesting to get a little bit more context to that, but probably some of the most interesting things about the spoilers is what we're going to get next. Because we cut back to the fight, and Toya says that he has indeed gone back home. As his body was weaker, he had already given up on meeting Endeavor's expectations, but he still hoped that the family environment had changed after 3 years. But when he arrived at the house, he saw his funeral altar and the infernal training to which Endeavor subjected Shoto. He realized that he was indeed a defective product, and his entire existence was already left in the past. Dabi says that as he exceeds his body's limits, his body started to become disfigured. He didn't want to meet Endeavor again weak like that, so he kept training his flames, and even though his skin burned, he felt no pain from the surgeries that were done on him. The more he saw Endeavor on TV, the more his hatred grew, and the more he took inspiration on his techniques. We see a flashback of him praying to the altar of Todoroki household, and he says that at that moment, Toya died, and in his place, Dabi was born. So it's very cool to see from what we get with these spoilers that, yeah, pretty much Dabi came into existence, not necessarily solely based off his past and what happened after the fire, but that the hatred inside of him grew more and more, and that's kind of what created Dabi. So it's interesting to see that, and maybe we can get a little bit more context to it when more of the chapter is released. And now we get to the final part of this chapter, where we have the doctor says the fire is an energy source that gives life to things and allows many others to function. However, Dabi's flames exist only to bring death, and that is not compatible with All for One, who longs to live forever. What follows is an impressive page of Dabi melting the top of All Might's statue, while Garaki says that there are the deadly obsessive flames that have escaped the reach of the King of Demons. The Todoroki brothers prepare to use Flash Fire Fist at the same time. Dabi says that he's going to destroy everything important to Endeavor, and this will be the proof that he's alive. But Shoto says that he won't let his stupid brother do as he pleases. End of chapter. So yeah, we pretty much got Dabi's flashback, and it's very interesting that this is kind of what we expected, but also kind of not. And we see that even though we know what this flashback is, we sort of kind of know how Dabi became Toya, but it's not necessarily from what we saw within this flashback, but just more of what's going on, or what was occurring, or what occurred because of Endeavor. So most likely we probably need the chapter proper to get a better understanding of what's going on, so I can do a better review of it. But yeah, we pretty much got the entirety of Dabi's backstory, and now we're going to finally go into the fight between the Todoroki siblings and what's going to come about from it. So this was going to be a very interesting and probably going to be a very great chapter, but most likely there are going to be mixed feelings, especially when it comes to the fact that All for One is a part of Dabi's backstory, and this is something that may be an issue for some people because of how influential All for One is to the story and the characters, more than just being a part of the plot. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about the spoilers for this week. So let me ask you, did you enjoy the spoilers? Did you enjoy Dabi's backstory? Leave your thoughts down in the comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!